My brother told everyone I abandoned our sick father while he was stealing his inheritance. You don't deserve a dime. He sneered, but when the bank statements came out, his face turned white. My name's Travis, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I've worked as a mechanical engineer for over 15 years. I'm not flashy, not the kind of guy who needs the newest gadgets or fancy vacations. I pay my bills, take care of my responsibilities, and live a life that's comfortable but simple. My dad, Walter, raised my brother Darren and me after my mom passed away when we were kids. He was an old school, no-nonsense man who worked in the steel mills until his body gave out on him. He wasn't the affectionate type. He showed love through actions, not words. If he built something for you, if he fixed your car, if he handed you 20 bucks without making a big deal about it, that was his way of saying he cared. Darren and I couldn't have been more different growing up. I was the one who followed the rules, got decent grades, and never got into trouble. Darren. He had this way of talking that could charm just about anyone. He was always borrowing money he never paid back, always bouncing from one job to another, and always had some excuse for why life was harder for him than everyone else. And somehow, Dad never saw Darren's bullcrap for what it was. Then Dad got sick. At first, it was little things, repeating the same story twice in a conversation, forgetting where he put his wallet. Then one night, he left the stove on and nearly burned the house down. That was the moment I knew we couldn't just brush it off as old age. A few doctor visits later, we got the official diagnosis, early onset dementia. Darren and I sat in the doctor's office together when we heard the news. Your father is still in the early stages, the doctor explained, but it will progress. He's going to need more care, more supervision. I was already making a mental list of what needed to be done: power of attorney, finances, care plans. Darren, on the other hand, sat there looking uninterested, like this was just another problem he could somehow pass off onto someone else. When we got outside, I turned to him. Look, Darren, we need to figure this out. Dad can't live alone much longer. He nodded, rubbing his jaw like he was thinking real hard. Yeah. I can help. I have more free time than you do. You've got your job, man. You can't be here all the time. He wasn't wrong. My job kept me busy, and I knew Dad would need round-the-clock care soon. The idea of a nursing home made me sick. Dad would hate it. You'd really step up? I asked, skeptical. Of course, he said. He's our dad. I'd do anything for him. I wanted to believe him. Maybe, just maybe, this was the moment Darren would finally grow up. So I let him take the lead. Biggest mistake of my life. At first, everything seemed fine. Darren moved in with Dad, and I still visited whenever I could, bringing groceries, making sure the bills were paid. But Darren always had an excuse for why I couldn't stay long. He's resting, or the doctor said he needs a routine, don't overstimulate him. I trusted Darren. Why wouldn't I? He was my brother. Then I got a call from my aunt, Eleanor. Travis, she said, her voice sharp with anger. Do you have any idea what Darren's been saying about you? I frowned. What do you mean? He's telling people you abandoned your father, that you don't even visit. People at church, the neighbors, even some of your old friends, they all think you just walked away and left Darren to handle everything alone. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That's not true. I know that, but not everyone does, she said. You need to go over there. Something isn't right. The next evening, I drove over to Dad's house. When I walked in, I immediately knew something was off. The place smelled stale, like old food and dirty laundry. This wasn't how Dad lived. I found him sitting in his recliner, thinner than I remembered, his shirt buttoned wrong. Hey, Dad, I said, kneeling in front of him. When was the last time you ate? He blinked slowly at me. Darren takes care of everything. A wave of cold anger rolled through me. Darren strolled in a moment later, all casual, like he hadn't just been caught letting our father waste away. You shouldn't be here, he said. I stood up. What the hell is going on? Why are you telling people I abandoned Dad? He snorted. Because you did. I clenched my fists. That's not true, and you know it. He shrugged. You come around when it's convenient for you. Meanwhile, I'm here every day, making sacrifices, taking care of Dad. I don't see you quitting your job to help. I ignored his attempt to twist the narrative. Where's Dad's checkbook? Darren's face darkened. What? Dad's checkbook. His bank statements. I want to see them. Dad mumbled. Darren handles all that now. I felt sick. Pushing past Darren, I grabbed the checkbook off the desk. Flipping through it, my stomach dropped. Page after page of withdrawals. Thousands of dollars gone. I turned to Darren, my voice low and shaking with fury. Where's the money? He smirked. Dad wanted me to have it. You stole it. He laughed. Oh, please. You think you deserve anything? You left. I did the hard work. You mean you let Dad rot while you drained his bank account? I snapped. His smirk faltered just a little. I didn't say another word. I pulled out my phone and called the bank the next morning. Then I took Dad down there myself. When the teller reviewed his accounts, it was worse than I thought. Over $50,000 gone. The police got involved. Darren tried to act innocent, tried to say Dad gave him the money. But the statements didn't lie. He was charged with financial elder abuse. Dad's health declined quickly after that. but at least he was taken care of in a proper facility where he wasn't being neglected. I visited him every day. I was there when he took his last breath. Darren? He slithered away, tried to avoid me at family gatherings, but he couldn't escape what he had done. His name was ruined, his reputation destroyed. The worst part? I wasn't even angry about the money. Money could be replaced. But what Darren did, turning people against me, making our father believe I had abandoned him, was unforgivable. I used to believe that family was everything. Now I know better. Family isn't about blood. It's about loyalty. And Darren? He was never really my brother. Darren didn't go to jail. I wish he had, but the system isn't built for people like him to get what they really deserve. He got probation, a slap on the wrist. They made him pay back what little he hadn't already spent, but most of the money was gone. Spent on gambling, booze, and whatever else he wasted his life on. He tried to act like it wasn't a big deal, like the whole thing had been some minor inconvenience. You really had to go that far, Travis? He scoffed the last time I saw him in court. Calling the cops on your own brother? Jesus, man. I didn't even dignify that with an answer. I thought maybe, after everything, Darren would at least have the decency to disappear from our lives. But he didn't. A few months after Dad passed, I was packing up the house. It had been sitting empty since he was moved to the care facility, and now that he was gone, it was time to sell. The place was too big, too empty. Every creaky floorboard, every dent in the wall, every faded family photo brought back a flood of memories I wasn't ready to deal with. I was boxing up Dad's things when I heard a car pull up outside. I didn't need to look to know who it was. A few seconds later, there was a knock at the door. I debated ignoring it, but I knew Darren. If I didn't answer, he'd just keep knocking until the neighbors started looking. I opened the door. There he was. Same cocky stance, same smug look on his face. But there was something else now, something hollow behind the arrogance. He looked like crap. His eyes were sunken in, his clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. Travis, he said, dragging my name out like we were old buddies catching up. Can we talk? I didn't say anything. I just crossed my arms and waited. He sighed. Look, man, I know we've had our differences. Differences? I let out a sharp laugh. You stole from Dad. You let him suffer while you bled him dry. You turned everyone against me. And you call that differences? His jaw tightened. I made mistakes, all right? But I was dealing with a lot. Taking care of Dad wasn't easy. I was drowning. And yeah, I screwed up. But you don't know what it was like being there every day, watching him slip away. I took a step forward, my voice like ice. You weren't taking care of him, Darren. You were using him. You let him sit in filth while you spent his money on yourself. His face twisted. You think I had some great life while you were off playing the good son from a distance? You think I was just rolling in money? That cash went to keep this place running. I pointed behind me. The unpaid utility bills in the kitchen say otherwise. His nostrils flared, but he caught himself. His voice softened. Look, I'm in a bad spot right now. I just need some help, Trav, just until I get back on my feet. I stared at him. He really had the audacity to show up here, after everything, and ask me for help. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch between us, let him sweat. Finally, I asked, how much? His eyes lit up like a slot machine hitting a jackpot. Not much, man. Just a few grand. Just enough to... I slammed the door in his face. He started pounding on it. Travis, come on, don't be like this. We're brothers. I locked the deadbolt. His muffled voice raged from the other side. You think you're better than me? Huh? You think you're some saint? I walked away. I could still hear him yelling as I packed the last of Dad's things into a box. Travis, you're a selfish bastard. You've always been a selfish bastard. After a while, the shouting stopped. A few minutes later, I heard his car start and drive away. I didn't watch him leave. I didn't care if I ever saw him again. But Darren wasn't done yet. A week later, I got a call from my cousin Ben. Hey, Ben said. I just ran into Darren. I sighed. What did he say? Ben hesitated. He's telling people you kept all of Dad's inheritance for yourself. I felt my jaw tighten. You've got to be kidding me. He's saying you manipulated Dad into signing everything over to you before he died. That you made yourself the sole beneficiary and left him with nothing. I pinched the bridge of my nose, trying to keep my temper in check. And people believe him? Ben sighed. Some do. You know how Darren is. He knows how to spin a story. And you haven't exactly been talking to people about it. So the lies were spreading again. I had half a mind to call Darren and rip into him. But what was the point? He'd just twist it, just turn it into another sob story where he was the victim and I was the heartless villain. No, I wasn't going to let him drag me down into his mess. But I also wasn't going to let him get away with it. I pulled up my bank app, took a screenshot of the account balance for Dad's estate. Then I opened my email and found the official probate records. Then I made a post on Facebook. I kept it simple. Since there seems to be some confusion about my father's estate, here are the facts. My dad's money was nearly gone by the time he passed, thanks to someone draining his accounts while pretending to take care of him. Everything that was left was split according to his will. There was no secret inheritance, no hidden fortune, just a sad, empty bank account and a trail of lies left behind. I suggest people check their sources before believing whatever bullcrap is being spread. I attached the screenshots, hit post, and closed my laptop. Darren was going to be furious. I didn't care. Let him lie. I had the truth. The post spread faster than I expected. At first, there was silence. No comments, no reactions, just people reading and absorbing it. Then one by one, the messages started coming in. Some were from old family friends apologizing for believing Darren's lies. Some were from relatives who had always suspected something was off but hadn't wanted to take sides. A few were from people defending Darren, but the hard evidence shut them down pretty quickly. Darren, of course, lost his mind. He called me that night, his number flashing across my screen. I let it ring. Then he texted, "Darren, take that crap down. Darren, you're ruining my life, Travis. Darren, we need to talk." I didn't respond. An hour later, another text. "Darren, you think you're so smart? You think this makes you look good?" I turned off my phone. Let him stew in it. The next day, I heard from Aunt Eleanor again. "Well," she said, amusement thick in her voice. I ran into Darren at the grocery store. He looked like someone kicked his dog. I chuckled. "I bet. He tried to tell me you faked those records," she continued. "Said you must have doctored the bank statements." I rolled my eyes. "Of course he did. But people aren't buying it this time," she added. "They saw the proof. You finally put him in a corner he can't weasel out of." That was the thing about Darren. He thrived on ambiguity, on spinning half-truths, twisting words, making people second-guess themselves. But when you hit him with cold, hard evidence, he crumbled. And crumble he did. Over the next few weeks, Darren's reputation tanked. People stopped lending him money. Families stopped inviting him to gatherings. Even his old drinking buddies started keeping their distance. Then came a cherry on top. I got a call from one of his ex-girlfriends, a woman named Rachel. We met a few times when they were dating years ago. She was smart, too smart for Darren, but back then, she had fallen for his charm like so many others. "Travis," she said, getting straight to the point, "I heard what Darren did to your dad. And, well, let's just say it made me think about all the crap he pulled on me. I'm taking him to small claims court. He owes me money." I grinned. "Good for you. And I'm not the only one," she added. "There are a few others. Women he scammed, people he borrowed from and never paid back. Your post opened the floodgates. People aren't afraid to go after him now." I leaned back in my chair, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Satisfaction. Darren had spent his whole life using people, manipulating them, making himself out to be the victim whenever things went south. But this time, the lies weren't working. This time, people saw him for what he really was. The last time I saw Darren in person was about 6 months later. I was at a coffee shop downtown, waiting in line, when I saw him sitting at a corner table. He looked defeated. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and there was no trace of the cocky smirk that used to be permanently glued to his face. For a split second, I felt something almost like pity. Then I remembered my father. I remembered the filth in that house. The way Darren let him suffer while he stole from him. I walked past without a word. And for the first time in my life, Darren didn't chase after me. No smug remark. No excuses. Just silence. And that, to me, was the most satisfying revenge of all. Darren wasn't in my life anymore. And I couldn't have been happier.